Good morning. My name is Steve Rosenbaum, and I live here in Beverly, literally, with my wife Kathy, and my amazing wife Kathy, and we are very honored and privileged to be part of the Cape Ann Family Group, a loving and warm group of disciples in the Rockport, Gloucester, and Beverly area, and I am honored today to share with you. Thank you, Kevin, for asking me to answer the question, how has the grace of God impacted my life? So I really wish I had about a day and a half to answer that question and do it justice. But in a few minutes or less, I will give it my best shot. And I'd like to begin with a passage. The passage comes from 2 Samuel. It's actually a prayer that David prayed long after he had experienced many victories as well as many failures. Towards the end of his reign, on one particular occasion, David prayed, as recorded in 2 Samuel 7, verse 18, "Who am I, O sovereign Lord, and what is my family, that you have brought me this far?" I just think that is a fantastic attitude of perspective to have in evaluating how far God has brought us in life, instead of stressing over how far I need to go, or maybe stressing over how far the world around me has fallen. How far God has brought me is the perspective I really need. When I think back, way back to 1975, when I was 15 years old, and very lost 15-year-old. I was an atheist, not religious, had never been to church in my life, I'd never even seen a Bible. And I was spiritually bankrupt. I lived in a community in Yonkers, New York, where I was trying to prove myself to would-be tough guys. And in that, I thought I would find security and success and happiness. There was none. And I remember on one particular occasion, in order to impress these fellas, I stole a car. And then in a fit of rage, I took that car up to a basketball court, the basketball courts of PS 32. And I proceeded to, in a fit of rage, attempt to destroy it by backing it into a basketball support again. And if any of you older members recall what Pintos were known for back then, exploding upon impact in rear collisions. Not the brightest move I ever made, but I'm here to tell you it was the grace of God in that car that day that kept me from being burned alive. In 1980, it was the grace of God that brought me to Florida and moved me into a dorm at the University of South Florida in Tampa and put me directly across the hall from the only Christian, or maybe one of the only Christians on campus then, a man by the name of Ron Drabo. Well, Reverend Ronnie, as I came to affectionately know him, and the demon-possessed kid became the best of friends. We made quite a pair. But it was Ronnie who, over a 2-year period, led me to faith in Christ. And that has forever altered my life on this earth and my family's life. And that was all the grace of God. I recall in 1985, it was ridiculously obvious that it was by God's grace I married my then girlfriend, now wife of 35 years, Catherine Marie, who in the last 35 years has shown me more grace and forgiven me more than anyone on earth except God himself. And then again in 1990, it was clearly by God's grace that I was able to watch my son Nick be born at Beverly Hospital. And I'll never forget the doctor saying, "Hey, look at the kid with the big hands." But it was even more thrilling for the 30 years since that day to watch him grow and become a powerful young man of God. The kind of young man I had always hoped I could be, but never could because I was far too corrupt. I admire him so much. And then similarly in 1996, it was also, and every bit as much, miraculously by God's grace, that my wife and I traveled to the other side of the planet, to Wuhan, China, to bring our daughter home, Natalie Kate. And let me tell you, this kid has grown up to be an amazing overcomer. She is a walking, talking miracle. And you know, God has made her extra cute so everybody could see it. And they do. You know, it isn't just the past that I see God's grace at work. Even in the present day, even in the dreaded year 2020, the year from Hades, the year that everybody says is the worst in memory. Of course, it was filled with great tragedy, hardship. It was also, I'm here to tell you, filled with God's grace. I think of my own business. I've owned a promotional products business here in Beverly for 20 years now. My specific field of expertise is trade show promotion. Well, trade shows have been canceled since February 2020, even still to this day. Technically, I should be out of business. But somehow, through God's grace expressing itself through government, SBA loans, stimulus checks, generosity from close personal friends, and a whole slate of new clients that honestly I have no idea how I got. I'm still here. I mean, I attribute that to the grace of God. And lastly, the grace of God has impacted me to the point where appreciating what Jesus did and communicating it clearly to everyone I possibly can the rest of my years on this earth, that is my bucket list right there. Because after all, who am I? And what is my family that God has brought me this far? Thank you for letting me share.